Thank you very much for your interest in Chicago Coatings Group. We know your time is valuable, and we deeply appreciate you taking a few minutes to learn about our unique services. My name is Warren Brand, and for about 25 years, I owned an industrial coating company. In that capacity, I had the opportunity to do everything from drive trucks, dig ditches, abrasive blast, and apply hundreds of different types of paints and coatings. In that time frame, I earned an MBA in entrepreneurship, became an ACE3 inspector, and an SSPC protective coating specialist. Over the years, I began to recognize that our clients, and the marketplace in general, were not being optimally served, and so we began to develop an offering of services which had one thread running through them all, and that is, what was really ultimately best for the client. Our services include, but are not limited to, failure analysis, condition surveys, as-found reports, specification writing, peer review of specifications and existing procedures and protocols, inspection services, and project management. Also unique to CCG is our optimal coating identification services and our development of actionable reports. This is a photo from inside a 250-foot diameter floating roof water treatment tank. This slide shows a highly complex mode of failure due fundamentally to incorrect identification of an optimal coating system. CCG draws its strong distinction between optimal solutions and the current industry standard of suitable solutions. It is our belief that the differentiation between optimal solutions and suitable solutions costs our overall economy billions every year and costs our clients dearly, in many cases, in ways that they were not even aware of. To the best of our knowledge, CCG is the only consulting entity producing actionable reports. Each report is site and client specific, but the common denominator is that they are actionable. That is, our reports will not only include observations and recommendations, but they can include specific proposals from a variety of different vendors, so that the client can act on the report and enter into contracts with previously vetted vendors. For example, the photo on the left is a brick-lined digester tank. Our client knew they had internal corrosion issues. In fact, they had paid a vendor more than $80,000 to apply a mastic to the brick, only to have it fail within 4 hours of putting the digester back in operation. In fact, if you look to the left of the photo, just above the scrap, you can see the delineation between the exposed brick and the failed coating, which has sort of an orange or rust hue to it. The photo on the right also allowed us to point out to our client that they were suffering from external corrosion as well. This is the outside of the same tank. Our actionable report included a variety of options, including repair of the existing tank, options pertaining to repair and replacement of the acid brick, but also a cost-benefit analysis of installing a new fiberglass tank. The client used the report extensively. Had they contacted us before they applied the epoxy mastic, they certainly would have saved the $80,000. Our report saved them enormous amounts of time, money, and effort, and provided them with a single reference for implementing everything from internal corrosion issues, external corrosion issues, secondary containment concerns, environmental, and other concerns as well. CCG is vendor and technology neutral. Our entire mission is to save our clients money and provide them with the best alternatives, regardless of what technology is used or which vendor provides it. If our client had contacted each vendor individually, they would have received each individual vendor's best suggestion. When we put our actionable report together, we vet the contractors first, we review the technology, and we filter all of that before we bring it to the client. The reason the client lost this $80,000 was because the vendor did a good job of selling their services. But all they had in their toolbox, all the vendor had in that toolbox, was a system that was not optimal. And that's the problem. Most vendors will only sell you what they have to offer. If there's a better solution, they are not incentivized to mention it, nor are they incentivized to bring you an optimal solution. At the end of the day, most everybody sells you what they have. CCG identifies what you need. Here's a quick case study. Our client needed this concrete water tank lined in the dead of winter. We identified a cold cure material, and in this case, installed the system as well. Coincidentally, this is the same coating system that I specified for Skidmore Owens for all of the water tanks in the Burj, the tallest building in the world located in Dubai. Our no maintenance design life on these systems are in excess of 20 years. So early in 2013, we reached out to a very large oil company that we'd heard was having some trouble with some neutralization tanks. They're about 40 feet in diameter, maybe 50 feet tall. They contain fundamentally water. And there were two of them, so we could take one out of service and work on it and then work on the other one. And so they had 5 vendors involved. And every 2 years, since the tank was originally lined, these 5 vendors would be engaged to come out and work on the tank. So the process would be to isolate one tank, then open the tank, and then the tank cleaning vendor would come in and clean out the tank to get the residue out and whatever's in there out and clean. And then the scaffolding vendor would come in and erect scaffolding. The engineering firm would come in and do some tests or as found or condition survey. And then you'd have the coating supplier recommending exactly the same coating system that had been not performing properly every 2 years. And then you had a coating applicator who was on a no-bid basis installing the coating supplier's recommended coating system. And this had been going on every 2 years for an enormous expense to our client. And nobody in those 5 vendors, and there were other vendors involved, but these were 5 vendors, their business model does not include going to the client and saying, hey, there's a coating system that may last 10 or 15 years or 20 years out there. And there's no bad people here. There's nothing illegal going on. There's nothing immoral or unethical going on. It's just that that's the way the system works, where all of those vendors are incentivized to feed their families and to make a profit on each given job. And so there's no evilness going on here. It's just the way the system works. But from the client's point of view, every 2 years they're doing exactly the same thing for an enormous expense, and it has reached an equilibrium and a status quo where the client is comfortable writing a PO every 2 years and all these vendors are making money every 2 years. But CCG comes in and flips that entire concept on its head. And we say, wait a second, maybe there's a better way. While CCG is also, of course, incentivized to maximize profit, our business model is fundamentally different from pretty much everyone else's. And that is, we focus on spending the client's money as if it were our own. And our goal is to go into whatever situation we're put in, whether it's QA, QC, whether it's coding identification, optimal coding identification. Everything we do is designed to provide longevity, durability, in a manner that really nobody else either has the technical background to be able to deliver or the incentive to deliver. This is a case study of a commercial application. CCG has worked in virtually every industry you can possibly think of, from food to wastewater to manufacturing, petrochemical, pharmaceuticals. We've worked on floors and swimming pools and spas and circuit boards. Really anything you can possibly imagine, CCG has been involved with. In this case, this is a 120-foot long by about 40-foot wide cooling tower in the city of Chicago. And we had worked with this vendor for many years, and they went with a different coating system instead of ours. And I called the client up, this was February many years ago, and I asked him how the coating system was performing. And he had me come out, and we walked into the cooling tower chamber, and he grabbed an end of the coating, and as we were walking the length of the cooling tower, he literally peeled back the coating. 120-foot strip of the coating came off as he and I were walking and talking. So now we had to remove that coating system and design a system that could be installed in very cold weather. And we did that very successfully, and our system held up just fine, and it'll be fine for the 15 years that it's been in service, and it'll be fine for the next 25 years as long as they choose to maintain the cooling tower. The problem is our client lost a lot of money because, again, they didn't understand the critical nature of an optimal coating identification. And that's what happened in this situation. This is another case study that I found very interesting. This is the inside of a sulfuric acid tank that is used in a certain type of a process. And while it's primarily sulfuric acid, there's some other materials in here as well. And we work closely with the client first to understand the mode of failure. And the photo on the right is a mode of failure that I had never seen before. And quite frankly, it took us several months to figure out exactly what that was. And I'm not going to give it away here, but feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email, and we'll be happy to reveal what it ultimately turned out to be. And in this case, we worked with the client. We developed a coating system that we knew would lose about a half a mil or a mil of coating a year. And everybody was okay with that. And we simply designed the system to be put in it, as I recall, about 40 mils. And the client was very comfortable with that kind of anticipated life expectancy. And they could budget for that, and they didn't even know if they were going to maintain operations for the 25 or 30-year anticipated service life. Now, of course, no one is guaranteeing a 25 or 30-year service life. There are other things that could be happening inside the tank, but the system we designed was well thought through, well designed, and intelligently designed to meet the client's specific applications. And it is certainly reasonable from a technical perspective, unless something changes inside the tank environment or something is added to the mixture inside the tank, it is certainly reasonable to anticipate a service life in that range in this kind of an environment. I wanted to close our presentation with one last case study. The photo on the left is the head of what's called a coal stacker, and it's one of the largest pieces of equipment on the planet. The one that we worked on here is actually relatively small compared to some of them around the world. We were tasked with two fundamental issues here. One was to find a coating system that would work in this environment. It was highly complicated and far too long to discuss here, but I wanted to talk to you about what's called a deflection plate. And the photo on the left shows a big scoop that will scoop up the coal, and then it doesn't drop it onto the conveyor belt on the right where the gentleman is walking. It drops it on a deflection plate. It's about the size of a two-car garage. And the deflection plate is subject to very violent impact from the coal, and also, as you can imagine, severe corrosion because it's constantly being cleaned, it's rained on, and this piece of equipment is absolutely critical to the client. If it goes down, it gets very, very costly very quickly, and the deflection plate, when it fails, pieces fall off onto the conveyor belt and damages it. It is a enormously critical piece of this entire system, the deflection plate. So we were hired to find a coating solution to coat the deflection plate. And we did. We found several ablative systems, but they were very costly and they were designed to wear out over time. So we did quite a bit of additional research, and we found what we term a metallurgical solution, where we found a steel plate that actually was stronger than the stainless steel that they were currently using and about 35% less. And so after we did our due diligence and provide our recommendation, they did their due diligence, and the first order, because lots of pieces of material needed to be replaced, the first order, we believe our client saved about $85,000 just in purchasing this different material that's less costly but is more appropriate for the application and will last longer. And so even though coatings is in our name, very often our solution does not involve coatings. Again, what we look at is root cause analysis, root cause issues, and then work up from there. If coating is a solution, that's great. Very often we advise our clients to leave things alone or change a process. And that's fundamentally what we do for our clients, is find ways to save them money. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. We hope we've been able to express to you the unique nature of CCG and the unique value that CCG can provide to almost any project. And you please feel free to visit our website. There's a blog there. There's lots of information there. There are downloads there. Of course, we have dozens and dozens and hundreds of references and recommendations. And it would be our sincere pleasure to speak with you about any project, any question, or any issue that you may have. Thanks again. and we hope you have a good day.